progress. Recording in progress.
Not sure if anyone can hear me, but my sound is off.
I can hear you, Mike, but I'm not sure what the status is with the rest.
I couldn't hear you, Mike.
I think Metro's working on the sound.
If only we could hear them.
Yes, that's the important part. Happy to talk to you, but actually we need the whole group.
You can hear us, Mike?
That's Alan, I think.
Yeah, now. Yep, we
Hi,
can.
Alan.
Great. Loud and clear, 5 by 5.
Yes, and I can hear you also. Thank you all very much.
And we can't see you, so we're just gonna work on, it's like
Can you
a,
see us?
it's like a team building exercise.
So I will go
First
back.
we give you earplugs and then we
I plan to go back to the beginning
blindfold you.
since we're not certain that the public was hearing us.
Do you want me to
Good idea.
start my part two?
Yes,
Re-apologize.
that's up to you. Well, Mike didn't, Mike.
Yeah,
and-
I'll reapologize. That's, thanks.
How many mea culpas can you do in one day?
Oh, I can tell you
I'm
that.
good at that. I like to just be direct and accountable.
And Sarah, are we good?
Yes, we are good and Katie will be bringing the printed copies.
Thank you. All right. Sorry, folks, for the technical delay. Good afternoon and welcome to the July 20th, 2022 City Council work session. I'm the council president. I am presiding over today's meeting in lieu of the mayor, who is joining us by Zoom, but staying home due to being under the weather. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format we are using as our state and community continue to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast 21, Channel 21, or by calling in to one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meeting materials webpage. So today we are having a work session on our decarbonization roadmap, and I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to get us started.
Thank you, Council President, Council, Mayor. I wanted to make a couple of comments. I've been really looking forward to this work session and was really happy that we were able to get Josh and good company on board to do this work for us. I've had an opportunity to meet with Josh a couple of times and have been really impressed with the depth at which we've been able to go into, and want to acknowledge that I made an error in that I've met with several of you along the way in our one-on-ones and said, hey, we're not going to be able to hit the commercial and industrial timeline. They're just simply not going to be able to do that work. And what I should have done was brought that forward for a council public discussion and vote. And so as we think about these things that have timelines going forward, I think that will be what you can expect, because there's a little bit of inconsistent communication, which isn't good for anybody. So I just wanted to say that so we don't have to spend a lot of time on that, and turn it over to Matt Rodriguez to introduce our topic and get going with this important topic.
Thanks, Sarah, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Matt Rodriguez, the Public Works Director. As Sarah said, we're pleased to have Josh Proudfoot from Good Company here, which is the consulting firm that did this work. It is focusing on part one of the report, which is residential buildings, but it has quite a bit of depth to it. After his presentation is done, I'm going to very, very briefly give you a somewhat related update from some modeling work done by Oregon Department of Energy, presented to the Oregon Global Warming Commission, that highlights kind of the statewide trajectory that I think that be useful as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Josh.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to serve you and give you good information here. Before I get going, I wanted to say a few things. One is that we've collected data from a number of different years and different sources, all highly credible sources, but the assumptions and ranges vary in small ways all around on the data. So you may see some numbers that aren't exactly consistent, but are close to each other. And I just wanted to explain that has a lot to do with COVID years, and also kind of boundaries of all the different studies that we're looking at. I also want to say that remotely, Aaron Toney's our lead analyst, is joining from home but not feeling well. So we'll just make sure that there's no spread of whatever. But he'll be jumping in on occasion, adding more detail, maybe correcting some small things as I present. So thank you. Let me get going here. Okay, so main purpose of the study, as you know, was first to characterize what the existing building supply or stock looks like. We note that commercial and industrial is falling on the residential. Residential is much deeper in data. and had more complexity than we were expecting, so we had to take more time with it. We also know that the interest was in finding out how can we protect the most vulnerable, not just with the best technologies, but financing and programs that might support them. Where might we find money to support the transition? That's the magic question everybody wants to know. Where are the gaps in the programs and where could the city act? Okay, so a reminder, in the community carbon footprint or greenhouse gas inventory, which is about 1 million metric tons of greenhouse gases annually, we have residential and commercial and industrial representing about 32% of the community carbon footprint. The rest is in transportation, waste, and refrigerants. We have a new project launching this fall to start addressing refrigerants with the city. Those are not included in the study. Part of what's happening right here is the knowledge on that is growing rapidly, and there's very little structure to support any transition there, except at the global regulatory level. There is an accord that requires the refrigerants to change over time, but it's excluded from today's presentation. Okay, so when we look at building energy for all of Eugene buildings with commercial, industrial, and residential, you'll see that we've got some big wedges of emissions. And the blue emissions are from natural gas, the light blue from residential, the dark blue from commercial and industrial, and the electricity is in yellow. That pattern will fall throughout. And you can see that in these 3 segments for buildings, this is where most of the emissions are coming from. Okay, so when we looked at the picture just went away. Is it still there for everybody else?
Yep.
Okay. When we looked at the data to try and understand the residential building stock in Eugene, we got the information from the Energy Trust of Oregon and from the American Community Survey. There's 76,000 total housing units in Eugene. About 60% of those are single family, 40% multifamily, and a smidgen of mobile homes. We're almost a perfect split between ownership and renting. And unfortunately, 65% of our housing was built before 1990. And the reason I say unfortunately is the weatherization and energy efficiency codes came in 1990 that we are familiar with. Vast majority of the heating is from electricity in Eugene versus the state, where it's about 50-50. We're about 22% natural gas, some wood, and other fuels. So where does that energy go in homes? So in a natural gas supplied home, space heating and water heating are the vast majority of where that gas goes. And clothes dryers and cooking add up to anywhere from 5 to 10%. The range on cooking I've seen is from 4 to 6%, but the stovetop is not the source of most of the need. The need is space heating and water heating. In electricity, you'll see a similar breakdown with a few variations. Okay, this is one of the most significant slides that we can share with you today. We have in draft format shared this with a number of the folks that work on low-income housing and programs around weatherization. And they say this is the clearest look they've seen at residential building stock. This is for Eugene only. So I want to help everybody read this graph. So first, ignore the different colors. And let's just look across the bottom axis. We see that single family detached homes has the largest bar. We see single family attached and duplexes and quads and apartments and mobile homes are all much smaller. If you look at the number at the top of each bar, you'll see that there are roughly 40,000 homes being served in single family dwellings. And you'll see second from the right, apartments, 20,000 homes. And notice the difference in scale. So apartments are about half of the dwellings, but they're far less than that in emissions. Also, I want to point out that if you look to the far right, mobile homes are small, but the emissions are disproportionate compared to the other units. So this says the emissions in existing buildings really are in single family detached homes. If you were to prioritize action based solely on scale, it would be in the single family homes. Now, for resiliency and for safety, we know we need cooling in the multifamily units. But from a climate priority, the emissions aren't there at scale the way they are in the single family homes. I'll give more detail to that in just a moment. Also, I want to call your attention to that black box on the top of the tallest bar. So it says cooking and other, and I just said that that's 4 to 6%. Given that the data is coming from many different places, this data blended cooking with swimming pools and hot tubs. And there aren't very many of them, honestly, but there's such disproportionate energy users that it is a significant bar. And if you'll notice, it's actually bigger than some of the multifamily dwellings with thousands of people living there. So that's one of the kind of surprise pop outs. This next slide will show you carbon intensity, not in absolute terms, but by square footage. So now let's look at this from two perspectives. First, again, we have the same bars in the same order, but you'll notice that the light green bar is basically greenhouse gases per 1,000 square feet. And you'll see that mobile homes are just disproportionately energy intensive. So from an equity standpoint, if we're to act to reduce bills and make energy affordable and reduce emissions intensity, we definitely need to work on mobile homes and trailers. From a emissions per year and absolute scale, we need to get into single family. So these two slides are really significant, and we can return to them later. Okay, to change gears a little bit to state level policy, there's a lot of questions about the Climate Protection Program, which was just introduced this year. That protection program requires a 90% emissions reduction by 2050 for all fossil fuels in power generation or in use in households, commercial, and industrial. Northwest Natural, in their compliance scenario, has a mix of demand side, which means efficiency, and supply side reduction to be compliant. One thing that I would like to point out is that that will not happen proportionately community by community. So if we were, let's say, 17% of their load in Eugene, we will not necessarily get 17% of the efficiency or 17% of the renewables. That's a state level average, and they will get that efficiency wherever it's most affordable, and they'll get that gas supply wherever it's most affordable. House Bill 2021 does not affect EWEB directly, but EWEB has a long history of low carbon power, which we'll show you in just a moment. And then this is significant for data quality. Both EWEB and Northwest Natural are just about to wrap up their long-term planning the integrated resource plans in late summer and fall. So we do not have that final data from them. What we have is interim data from them. So there's going to be hopefully some shifts that we'll see coming soon, and their mandates are strong. So what is Northwest Natural's vision for 2050 and how they're going to meet their goals? So this is their vision, which goes beyond their regulatory compliance. At the top, you see where they can get efficiency. At the bottom, you can see where they can get supply. That efficiency, again, will happen anywhere in the state where it's most affordable. It doesn't happen community by community on a prorated basis. And on the supply side, they are expecting a large quantity of renewable natural gas and a smaller quantity of hydrogen. My 2 cents here is that the renewable natural gas is finite. The hydrogen can scale, but it hasn't been deployed yet. It's been deployed in locations and places, industrial applications, et cetera, but locally, it's not here yet. The technology does exist, and you could scale to the demand of natural gas today if you were to make that intention come to be. I will also say that there are a large number of fuel providers that are trying to develop hydrogen everywhere they can because the writing's on the wall. So energy supply, this is what EWEB currently has compared to the state. EWEB's mix is very low carbon. It's not necessarily renewable, but it's very low carbon. As you can see, the majority of it is from Bonneville. There's some nuclear in there and biomass and wind. There's some coal, but very little. And there's a little bit of natural gas and some de minimis solar. Okay, so looking at Northwest Natural and their compliance schedule and the 2045 horizon, these are the numbers that Northwest Natural provided to us to show how fast they're going to decarbonize and in what segments, just with efficiency. So this is decreasing the need to use gas. So that's things like weatherization, where your house is more tight, so you don't need to add as much heat. Now to flip that, we're going to show you not the decreased demand, but the increase in renewables. So the yellow bar is electricity coming from EWEB. And you'll notice that in the current bar, they're pretty much hovering around 90%, but their intention is to go to 95%. You'll see the blue bars, and this is percentage renewableness of natural gas. And you'll see that it takes a long time to get to 2045 to scale up that renewableness. So you can imagine that they have to decrease the demand and also increase the supply of green gas. The decrease comes faster than the supply from what we read here. And you can see that we have renewable or at least low carbon electricity in this model. When you put them all together and you look at how those emissions will go down, this is what it looks like with all the fuels in the state based on regulatory constructs, but also EWEB's history of low carbon power. Okay, so here are what's most commonly known as the main decarbonization strategies. And this is coming from Energy and Environmental Economics, E3, very reputable firm, used by EWEB, used by Northwest Natural, used by others. They do great work. And what they say is we need the conservation piece, we need electrification, we need low carbon energy, and then the non-combustion GHGs, which are things like refrigerants and methane coming from both cattle, but also things like landfills and biodigesters at wastewater treatment plants. From NREL and Northwest Natural and the ETO, what they suggest for cost-effective energy efficiency is pretty consistent with everybody else. Water heating, space heating controls, and weatherization. I do want to point out that part of Northwest Natural strategy includes heat pumps, whether those are augmented with gas or dual fuel, or if you just throw a heat pump in there and also have a gas furnace. And if you look at ETO's history for the last couple of years, they've put a lot of money into weatherization consistently, and hot water, and then appliances. There is a big increase in efficiency in water heaters years back, but any other gas appliances they've had incentives on. For electricity, we look to the Northwest Power Plan to define what's cost effective. So again, we're in the same places with a few exceptions. Water heating, space heating controls, weatherization, and the unique one is lighting. We're not doing gas lamps anymore. And LED lighting, even though it doesn't have giant scale, it's a known winner. It's one of those things that gives us money back in almost every circumstance, but lighting is a small part of any building's energy footprint. So from eWeb's electrification study findings by E3, the same group that served Northwest Natural in their studies, they came up with a number of different strategies that we want to highlight for consistency across all these different groups. One is the heat pump water heater, which is something that is a new technology that's deployed that UWeb has a lot of incentives on. The other one is the cold climate heat pump, which is all electric. It's not dual fuel, but it can handle much colder climates and much higher climates. It's the one we just got in our house, and I think ours can comfortably serve us to 0 degrees. It is much different than the traditional ones that go down to 30. And then dual fuel heat pumps. The combination here of gas in peak wintertime to support or augment the heat pump for cooling and heating in those peak moments, and or something that's a little bit more low tech, which is keep your old gas furnace and add a heat pump, something equivalent, roughly equivalent. Okay, costs. So clean heat retrofit costs. This is a term of art that's emerging. And what this means usually is electrical panel upgrades, weatherization, and then the heating, water heating and air heating appliances switch to electric. And we got cost data from eWeb and Homes for Good, but again, there's a little bit of lag here. And from our own experience in Oak Ridge, we're seeing price increases. I mean, we're seeing it everywhere. Okay, so this takes a moment to look at. Whole house retrofit per household total cost. So this top line shows a scenario in which you have gas heat, gas hot water, and you have AC. And for that AC, we're assuming as baseline that you just replace those things when it was time to do it with more efficient ones. We don't put in weatherization or panel upgrades there. We're saying, hey, if there is a mostly gas served house, what would it cost to update the equipment? Then if you look at the other scenarios, the panel upgrade is yellow. That's a fixed amount, and the weatherization is a fixed amount. So in all these scenarios, those costs are the same. And if you wanted the baseline to include weatherization, that would be the same number 2 minus the panel upgrade. So then you see the different scenarios of first costs, and these are by equipment, show you which one has more expense on first cost. So that means buying it. Okay, so if we went community-wide and everything had to be switched at once, how much would it cost in aggregate for each one of these strategies? And it looks like a big scary number, but remember that all these appliances generally get changed every 15 years. So these costs are generally absorbed anyway on some level for people to replace their appliances and continue to heat their hot water and their spaces. You'll notice that the low-income household totals are dramatically lower because there's so many programs to support them. That said, most of those funds and the reach of those funds would not get to everybody we want to. But in a hypothetical scenario of everything's available, this is what it looks like. And it's a lot lower. There are good programs in Oregon. The question is, can the programs reach everyone? And then when you look at this as natural replacement schedule and then the incremental cost or the marginal costs of what it would cost beyond replacing a gas hot water heater with a gas hot water heater that's more efficient and replacing a furnace with a new, more efficient furnace, you see these numbers come way down. So this is the difference on just the first cost. It doesn't show savings. It doesn't show any of the other things like cost of energy, which we expect by 2050 gas to go up by 300% and electricity to go up by 100%. Okay, so let's say we did a clean heat retrofit. And in one scenario, we're doing it all electric, and in the other scenario, we're doing it with gas, knowing the efficiencies that are coming and the renewables that are coming online. And what we show is the cumulative emissions. So the far right bars show all those years adding up, and where would it be? So if we did all electric for heating, water, and space, you'll see that that gets to roughly 10 metric tons of greenhouse gases in total over that time period. Whereas with natural gas, even with the regulatory shift, it's about 50. So it's a lot more, but also just for scale, the average American household of, I think, 3.4 people has a carbon footprint of about 100 metric tons a year. In the Pacific Northwest, if you're on power like we have, like EWEB, you're more around 85 for scale. Okay, so here's life cycle cost. So this says over 15 years, and this is from E3 again, what's going to be the difference in total cost? And we see that with a standard heat pump, it's about $500 more over 15 years to put a standard heat pump in there and also replace that. Sorry, this is also replace that. Sorry, this is without hot water in it. The second scenario is the cold weather heat pump. That's the extended range that can go down depending on the product to -5 to +10 versus 30. And you'll see that there's an increment there of what 3,500 over 15 years. And then in a dual fuel heat pump, which has gas adding heat in the wintertime, there's a difference of about 700 over 15 years. So this is a little bit more comprehensive a look. Then if I can jump to solar and battery backup, This was requested. This is certainly not the most efficient way to get at it, but it is one way we could get at it. To have enough solar now, the standard thinking for dealing with this heat and hot water is a 5.6 kilowatt system. That's about 16,000 in today's program dollars. Those prices change a lot. The panels have come down dramatically in price, plus incentives. And then the storage is another $12,000 on top of that. And storage gives you more flexibility. This is one way we could meet some of the loads that are needed. UWeb found, if you look at that example community costs, that they needed about 10 average megawatts to electrify 50% of the space and 85% of the water. For scale, again, I think EWeb on average is somewhere around 350 megawatts. So this is not a dramatic shift. 10 megawatts of solar is not so large. It would probably fit at a facility like the landfill. It's not a very large area project. And you could see we could do this on about 7,000 homes locally, or we could just have one consolidated project for that path. This is a program overview of all the services and all the service providers. There's some things that are very covered and some things that aren't. What we've found in aggregate is there's almost a player anywhere doing the kinds of things we want them to do, but their scale and their funding are dramatically different from entity to entity, and their purpose is different. So part of what's tough here is engaging all these programs when there's so much there and there's the ability to stack some of these benefits, but that actually takes professional management. And each one of these programs have project managers, but they don't necessarily have to work with all the other programs. They do casually, they coordinate where they can, but I can promise you that there's never enough funding here or enough staff. So funding sources, a few ideas, and this isn't as mature a slide as I'd like it to be. There's some other sources we want to explore. But energy efficiency block grants exist, but they certainly won't meet the scale of every community decarbonizing. Portland set up a sales tax for the Portland Clean Energy Fund. This program is great, but there's a lot of double duty on existing service providers. So there's some loss of efficiency there, but their target is low income and BIPOC households that struggle with the cost of energy and the more energy intensive places. They're also looking where they can to replace wood heat, just because 3% of the population is producing the largest pollution source in Portland. And that's very low income families relying on wood for heat. In Ithaca, New York, they set up a program with private equity where they set up a fixed price contract that any household could participate in, where they have the known winners, the interventions that always pay off, usually the heat pump and the water heaters. And they have bulk pricing for families to participate in that program and make the switch. Every other version of what we've seen is some kind of debt. It's borrowed money on preferred terms, it's bulk buying, it's ways to shave transaction costs and make it more convenient for folks to get through. For individual homeowners, you've got many different programs, but the property assessed clean energy financing is a kind of debt financing with very friendly terms. You don't have to put up your house to back it, but it is collected on the tax record. And then energy savings performance contracts in some buildings where there's enough savings to be made, you can get the transition financed up front, and you pay for that out of the bills, the savings from the bills you have. So to focus on equity, where is the need? The permanent effective cooling for health and safety. So we had a law passed at the state to provide cooling funds and ensure that low-income housing includes cooling. This is likely to be ductless heat pumps. They want that equipment to be permanent and not mobile and travel with somebody when they leave the apartment and take the air conditioning with them. They also want to make sure that that is energy efficient. But that heat dome event was a little taste of tomorrow and more frequent tomorrow. And the legislature has acted. Again, the number of homes they're supporting per year is not as big a number as we need, but it's starting to happen. With all these programs, you can stack funds, but you have to keep those monies separate. So managing these programs requires extra project management. And we're running the air quality program in Oak Ridge right now, and we're replacing wood stoves with ductless heat pumps. And we have money coming from all over the place, and you have to manage it so carefully. It has to be really professionally done to keep everybody happy and the accounting records together. So the oldest mobile homes and single family homes, biggest emissions, biggest bills, most likely to be living near the edge. Here's a place where we need cooling, we need safety, and we need better housing for them. What we found with a lot of the grant funds in Oak Ridge is that if the mobile home is not worth the grants that are going in it, we can't do it, which is a real tragedy. You say, unfortunately, this program that's for low income folks doesn't serve you because you're too low income. And we can't do that. So we're trying to partner with St. Vincent de Paul and contribute the weatherization money towards the purchase of a new mobile home or properly insulated home. One of the really kind of sad and depressing things of where does so much of that energy go in the mobile homes is into dehumidifiers. When you think about a very wet winter and a poor envelope, we've got folks living in very moldy conditions and they must run dehumidifiers all the time, and it turns out to be a significant load. Okay, so recommendations. Because the existing emissions in the existing building stock are the greatest source of emissions we have now, we suggest prioritizing existing buildings. That doesn't mean to say that future buildings won't be putting out emissions. It's just future buildings will be more efficient. There are energy efficiency codes that are going to be dramatically increased in this state, as well as the energy sources are changing. The existing buildings are where the problems are. We know it's in single family dwellings. We know it's in the dwellings before 1990. That's where we think the emphasis needs to go if we're targeting emissions. Again, if we're talking safety, multifamily for cooling, but mobile and manufactured homes have the most reduction potential per unit. And there's the most kind of equity to be provided or service to be provided there. The biggest picture is that despite all the great work from so many organizations and all the funding, we still need more financial tools, whether that's efficient debt service. We still need more outreach, and we still need more project management. All of that exists inside of any one of these programs, but there's always the stacking of funds. There's always the pooling. You can't actually pool, they're stacked. You have to keep them separate, but you always have to work with so many different groups. And there aren't necessarily a central hub to coordinate everybody to get the maximum benefit to each home. And then last but not least, if you could align your timelines, but not your goals with the state, the cost of data acquisition and calculating everything would be a lot cheaper because we don't have to modify every single study to the 2045 standard. Now, that said, I just want to highlight, we're not recommending that you change your goals. We're just saying when you look to what year you may want to go to 2050, 2035 and 2050 are the time horizons that most of the studies have been aimed at. So again, just for cost effectiveness of analysis in the future and looking at it and comparability, we recommend that, but we're not saying change your goals. That is your decision to make. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, very, very quickly. I know we want to get to questions. I am going to give you an update that I think is relevant. So last week, Oregon Department of Energy gave an update on the roadmap to 2035 work that's happening in partnership with the Oregon Global Warming Commission. And Oregon Global Warming Commission was set up in 2007 by the legislature to work on how we move to a lower carbon future. That's not coming up.
Sorry.
I'll keep going while Sarah helps us out. So there's two aspects of this update that I think that are useful for us. One is its projections of the effect of existing policies and programs at a state level. And then also some tools that will be built through this roadmap to 2035 that will be useful to us when we're thinking about how to do this work locally. Okay, so very briefly, they're using a model that's economy-wide, customized for the Oregon framework, but has county-level data. So you can actually look down and see what the most cost-efficient and equity-centered actions are down to that level, which is going to be really useful. And it's a kind of tried and true model that's been used many times over the past 20 years. What's also pretty cool about this, as I understand it from the presentation, is this model takes into account co-benefits. So it will be looking at things like health and equity, or health and quality of life impacts, equity across the community, how it affects economic development and jobs and environmental impacts. One of the tools that's going to come out of this that's going to be, I think, very helpful, and to some extent it's similar to what Josh has presented from our report when we're talking about like how long does it take to pay off a heat pump retrofit over the course of its life, or these things called marginal abatement costs. Now remember, this work is across all sectors, so it's not just buildings, but to meet greenhouse gas emission reduction targets from the state, across the state. The width of these columns kind of tells you the amount of greenhouse gas emissions impacts it can have, and then this is telling you, is this a cost negative over the life thing that we can implement, or is there an additional cost that would be needing to implement it? So it just helps you make informed considerations. So when they looked at where are we on the path to the state 2035 and 2050 goals, the state's goals are at least a 45% reduction by 2035 statewide emissions and at least an 80% reduction by 2050. It's looking at existing rules and programs. It's looking at EVs, but just based on the market, nothing more aggressive than that. This is the whole landscape of what all those things are that are currently in process. And these are two more. So Advanced Clean Cars 2 and Clean Fuel Standards Expansion are programs under development. So this is what it looks like as far as emissions reduction. So that top line is kind of the business as usual, or what they call the reference case if we weren't taking these actions. The blue is the area of emissions reductions under what we currently have in place, and then the yellow is under development. And what their report showed is that for a 45% reduction goal by 2035, everything that's being implemented on a state level is expected to hit that goal. And there's more work to do to meet the 80% by 2050 goal. So the next steps in this reporting are there's going to be three different kind of scenarios that are looked at on how to kind of dial in how to get there by 2035. Those marginal abatement cost curves will be created. That'll be a really useful tool, I think, across the state and communities to think about the actions we want to take. And then the report will be completed mid-December, and I believe the goal is to have that report available to inform decision-making by the governor and the 2023 legislative session on the state level. So, and with that, we'll hand it over to you for questions.
Thank you. So let's do a round of questions and comments to start with. And I see Councillor Clark has his hand up. Councillor
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. First of all, that's a fantastic presentation, Josh. Well done, Matt.
Thank you.
I appreciate it very much. There's quite a lot of information in there, and it's going to take me some time to go through all of that, I suspect, to make sure that we're making good decisions. But I had one question on the top of my head, because all of this is built, it seems to me, with a number of assumptions, and that's normal. That's what you have to do. There were a couple of things that seemed predictable to me, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to comment on impact of such things, Josh. One of which was, it's my opinion that it's highly likely we'll end up with a ruling that creates the need for 4 of the lower Snake River dams to be breached. My understanding is that'll decrease supply to Bonneville by about 33%. And so I'd love it if you'd correct my understanding of the decrease of supply, and then answer, with the modeling you've done, what would be the cost impact predominantly, but also some of the other reliability impacts of that source of supply going away, both on cost and reliability, taking into account what it'll do to peak demand. Is that something you can comment on?
I can comment a little bit on it.
Mm-hmm.
In the EWEB report, they mentioned that it was about 11% reduction in production from Bonneville's system based on their climate projections. The aging out of the equipment from just being, a 70-year-old dam, and the fish ladder stuff aside, I'm not sure about that. But what we're seeing from recent large-scale procurements of energy, so LA Department of Water and Power and Florida Power and Light had open RFPs for power production, and the solar with storage came in cheaper than gas turbines. So solar with storage is looking like the most cost-effective power production source that's available now. And LA Department of Water and Power has invested there. And that was just purely awarded on price, same with Florida Power and Light. But they're also investing in hydrogen production and storage in their natural gas caverns. And ultimately, they want to have hydrogen as their gas supply. So I see.
I apologize. Let me jump in and say,
sure.
But they're already at the reliability problem in California of brownouts all the time. And during the event in Texas in the winter and during the summer events in California, their reliability has decreased to a really unfortunate level. So my question is, I'm looking at the impacts to our reliability if that amount of supply goes away, not how they mitigate for that.
Well, so a couple of thoughts on that. One is, in any scenario, whether we're going to green gas or we're going to just electricity, power generation has to be expanded. Because if you're making hydrogen, you have to make hydrogen from that electrolysis. So no matter what, going forward, we're looking at a major expansion of power generation, period, any place you are in the US. The other piece that I'd add is that the storage is kind of the new thing, and we know that the grid capacity is also an issue. But if you look at all the different models, you're also seeing decentralization happening. It's not always the big, long corridors, but every part of that system is going to need a lot of growth. And that's happening no matter what, just out of population and the rise of electronics, et cetera. So we're looking at a massive expansion of power generation in any scenario going forward.
How are we equipped to do that in the short term if we at the council make decisions that impact in the short term?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
So what you're saying is that in the out years and in a longer term scenario, everyone's looking to increase generation, and that's to be expected. My point is that we have the potential to lose a large chunk of supply right away when the grid is already in danger. And my question is, won't that radically increase our short-term costs just as the system is right now?
As I've seen it, electricity is expected to go up 100% by 2050 and gas 300%. And I believe that was in the eWeb study. I'm not certain about that, but really, I think your question is better aimed at Bonneville Power Administration.
Right.
I'm not hearing about them pulling down dams, but I am hearing about the loss in productivity based on the climate regimes.
And Councilor Clark, could I add very briefly for the materials that are coming with the July 25th work session, there is a memo from eWeb that speaks to the lower Snake River dams and some of the reliability questions.
Thank you. There's also in our email this morning, someone was kind enough to provide us a link from the former director of Bonneville that talks about some of these issues. And I would highly encourage my colleagues to read that article that was written by the former general manager, the former director of Bonneville. It contains quite a lot of good research and detail on this question. Thank you.
I have Councilor Keating and then Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Josh. Josh, good to see you in the three-dimensional space. Last time we saw each other, it was an El Rapa Zoom meeting, if memory serves. Yep. I appreciate your expertise and such a great presentation. I'm looking at page 13, the residential solar, photovoltaic and battery backup piece. And when you were going over it at slide 26, I flipped back to slide 11, page 6, which is the energy supply and the minimal, underscore, italicize and bold the word minimal amount of solar power supply at 0.1%. And we're on the same parallel as Germany. Similar weather patterns. Oak Ridge has done some great work in regards to increasing solar, and I wonder why we are at a 0.1% when there's been solar incentives in the last 20 years, but they seem to come and go depending on who controls the gavel in DC. But could you help me wrap my head around if indeed an amount of supply energy goes away, why we as a society or as a community aren't leaning into solar more?
I think you're actually seeing it around the country and around the world. I think we're just enjoying the benefits of historic access to low carbon hydropower. On a household basis, I'm a fan of household or rooftop solar. Absolutely. It's been transformative in California, but just cost effectiveness and speed. If you talk to the folks at PGE that are working with communities to get green power as fast as they can, they're buying into large projects where that can be done on a very cost effective basis. Whereas the household basis is very resilient and has strength to it. It's just on a per unit cost or per megawatt cost. It's not as cost effective. I think there's plenty of solar here. We've been involved in developing a couple of solar projects for ODOT. It can yield returns. It's just on a, cost-effective basis. If you're deploying a very large facility, it's much cheaper than household by household. I think any other questions about their supply, their IRP's coming out this fall, and I'd love to see what they have to say on that.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to continuing that conversation when we have a joint council eWeb collaborative conversation. Thank you, Josh.
Sure.
My next question goes to the need for more financial tools piece. Resources and project manager personnel you articulated well how much they're needed. And I'm going back to page 14 now on slide 28. You mentioned a Portland sales tax for the Portland Clean Energy Fund. This might be a question more for our legal team, but if there's a consumption fee or a similarly structured sales tax in our community that targeted gas-powered tools, new and used vehicles, kitchen equipment, and directed those resources toward a similarly structured City of Eugene Clean Energy Fund to fill the buckets in the local services bucket up above on slide 27. Would that be something within council's wheelhouse to advance?
I'd want to take a hard look at it. We have a lot of documents that really comprehensively look at all the different tools within you as a council's toolbox when it comes to taxing or setting fees and things like that. And so, the last time it came up was around the payroll tax. So we can certainly access those documents to speak to these questions as well. And I'd rather do that and go to that document that was well researched than kind of off the fly right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Let me rephrase or reframe the question then.
Okay.
Should a counselor advance? I have 1 second left, so I'm going to go to a second round, Council President.
All right, I got you down.
Thanks.
Council Gross.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you very much, both of you and Josh, for the presentation.
Sure.
I came in with a lot of questions, and you answered just about all of them in the presentation, and I appreciate that. I'm still stymied by the cost. That's a hard pill to swallow, and trying to figure that out. If my math is correct, using the Ithaca model and trying to translate it to our numbers, it looked like it was almost $1 billion at the 50% or 50,000 per residential unit conversion. And then for the 35 to 40,000 cost per unit, it would be down around 665 million to 760 million, somewhere rough numbers. Is that math work?
So these are alternate scenarios. So they're not additive, right?
No, those are not additive. Those were just individual, taking the number of units, multiplying it by either 35,000, 40,000, or 50,000.
I would want to defer to Aaron. Aaron, I don't know if you can join us. You know the answer to this one?
Sure. Hello. So the Ithaca number is larger than what we used to scale costs because it includes some other things. So the cost we looked at for the appliances and the panel upgrade and the weatherization was around $30,000 per unit. Ithaca assumed higher costs. They were doing things that we didn't include in ours, including having the residents be solar ready and EV ready. They also assumed some greater costs around demo of existing systems and having to put in some new systems. Their building stock was older and used some different fuels than are common here.
Thank you. So basically, even at 30,000 per unit, we're still well over $600 million just for residential. And I'm confining my comments to residential since we're delaying the commercial industrial, which I'm sure will be substantially more. So it's just, I think it's important to understand the cost implications there. The next point, I've been tracking that lower Snake River Canyon work. In fact, there was a really good op-ed piece in the paper the other day from the board chair and the utility CEO for People Utilities District that talked about just this scenario. And although the lower Snake Canyon hydro projects most likely would affect our area, there's also the Klamath River projects, which that's more California, but then it starts getting into the national grid. The other question I did have is on solar. To follow up with Councillor Keating, I was in Germany last August. I was stunned how much solar I saw there in roughly the same climate we have. I saw it in rural areas, great big fields of solar panels. I saw it on just about every house and barn. And it seems like they've really embraced that. And so I'm assuming we would have about the same amount of solar production here if we were to do something similar.
Yeah, and on the east side even more, and some parts of Southern Oregon. It's one of those things where people say it rains up here, so we don't get the generation. We don't get the generation the same as the desert, but we get enough to make it possible and affordable and make it pay off and all that stuff. And that's the thing that I think there's a big opportunity there. But again, I just want to caution, there's a difference between, unit costs on a per household basis versus a mega project. And like the one I referred to that beat out natural gas energy production with storage was a very large project. It was, 1,000 megawatts, which is equivalent to one of the dams on the Columbia.
Thank you. Personally, I believe we should be looking at all things energy right now. This is something that we really need to be well informed on and make good, responsible decisions. Moving on to hydrogen. I know that EWEB and Northwest Natural have entered into an agreement to start working on an electrolyzer at the EWEB facility. I was able to see a really nice presentation on that. How viable do you feel that is?
I'm very bullish on hydrogen. It's really the deployment time. When we've worked on projects, we've never seen the money show up before the project was defined. But on hydrogen projects, there's so many major industrial gas companies and fuel providers that want to get in it, that there's a lot of money looking for a home. I also know that technology is stable and ready and scalable. The thing I don't have good knowledge on is on the super scale, but on the industrial site by industrial site, I know that technology is possible. I just don't know the cost for each and every production facility. But when I talk to the folks at California Air Resource Board that are running the hydrogen program, they said we are driving towards green hydrogen for heavy duty vehicles and industrial applications. And we believe that's the only way to meet those thermal loads at scale. So again, behind that is producing electricity to produce the hydrogen. And so in a green hydrogen scenario or an all electricity scenario, we still need a big increase in generation. Both scenarios require it.
Thank you. That's helpful. Council President, I'm out of time, but I would like a second round, please.
Okay. I put myself in the queue. Thank you for the presentation and the report on the residential. Very, very helpful, very informative. I did have a question and then I have some comments. On the whole house retrofit, what were the assumptions that were made about the house being retrofitted? How did you decide?
I believe this is all ETO data, and it's averaged. So we had to kind of decide that things would have to get weatherized. There are some buildings that would not need to be weatherized at the level that we have, but with the assumption of 65% of the residential homes being pre-1990, we have some assumptions like that built in here. I do want to remind everybody that we will bear these costs anyway. right? There's two 15-year cycles between now and 2050 where all of our appliances, heating and cooling are going to turn over twice. So these are giant numbers, but a lot of these numbers are going to be there anyway. It's just how we do it.
So what I was getting at, like, is it a house built in 1985? Is it 25?
It's a pre-1990 house.
Is it
pre-1990 house with the average square footage for the area?
Okay.
So
that's helpful.
Oh, okay. So if you remember the intensity by the housing type,
yes,
we had the square footage across the bottom.
Okay,
Those
so that's the square footage.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sarah, is Councilor Clark's hand has been up since he had his turn, so I don't know. Okay, I apologize, Councilor Clark. Okay, you're on down for a second round. So I really appreciate the recommendation around kind of a central project management hub to ensure that we're using all the available resources to the best effect. I think that's an excellent recommendation. I'm not sure how we implement that on a practical terms, but I think it's something we should really be thinking about. I just want to respond to some of the other conversation. The brownouts in California are not due to reliability issues. As far as I understand, they were to prevent forest fires. If there's information out there that says otherwise, I would appreciate seeing it. Texas relies almost exclusively on carbon emitting power, and that is what failed them during their cold snap, not because they were using too much solar or other non-carbon emitting sources of energy. Any prospect for removing the Snake River dams is not going to happen for a good decade, if it happens at all. So I think for us to be worrying about, like, if we do take some actions today, that's going to be an issue, I think it's a little premature. Is it not accurate that Northwest Natural is suing the state to get out from under the requirements of the Climate Protection Program?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
They published a letter to the public about it.
Yeah, they've published a lot of things to the public. If they are successful in that lawsuit, they're going to stop doing all of this work other than to make themselves look good. That's my personal opinion. And I appreciate what you said about the writing may be on the wall in terms of hydrogen, but I think Northwest Natural seems to be deliberately looking the other way. So those are my comments for right now. And Councilor Zelenka.
Thank you, Claire. I think this is an awesome presentation. Thank you very much for putting this together. Good company does such excellent work. We're actually, and they have a fantastic reputation, great reputation. I'm glad they're on board and helping us out with this.
Thank you.
And they're a local company. I'm glad all of this is super clear and simple because moving forward, I wanted to focus on the recommendations a bit. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about Lower Snake River dams. It's about 10%. The strategy would not be remove them and then figure out what to do. The strategy would be replace before they get removed. So that would not impact reliability. And they are completely replaceable with 100% clean electricity, but it has a cost. It's about $400 million. The big issue is who pays. Should it be the region, the feds, or just Bonneville customers? And I just wanted to clear something. The grid is not in danger, and reliability is not a current issue. Like Claire said, those are in California are related to fires. There is an enormous amount of greenhouse gas or renewables that need to come online, 80,000 megawatts by 2050 in the Northwest, compared to the 3,000 associated with the Lower Snake River dams. The bigger issue is coal retirements. There's 21,000 megawatts of coal probably retiring over the next decade or so. In the West, 4,000 of that just in the Pacific Northwest. So just to add to that, there's also some good information that I'll provide the staff on this. But I'll need a second round, but all this data is very interesting. One of the most interesting ones is the slide that showed where our emissions are coming from, and 53%, I think it said, were from transportation. I wish we'd be focusing on transportation more than we are, which is zero almost. So I think that we need to turn our attention to that since it's the majority of our emissions. On the recommendations, I agree that the existing housing stock is the priority. I wondered if you know what the percentage is for natural gas of the emissions moving forward from existing versus new hookups. Do we know that?
We're not looking at that. Sorry, I don't know that answer. Do we have that in there?
I think it's about 90-10, but.
So we don't have it quite on this timeline. The July 25th council packet, which I think Sarah said is coming out tomorrow, actually answers all of the questions that council gave us for new building electrification. It has a number that address this.
Good, great. So
there is some information in there from some past good company work that it's looking at 2019 or 2022 and 2037. And can you get that number, Josh?
Yeah, it looks like 13% increase in hookups between now and 2037.
So it's about 150,000 metric tons a year existing, and we'd add another 19,000 a year with new buildings in that timeline. That's the estimate.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that more on the 25th. I agree that existing buildings, much less efficient, bigger bang for the buck, more savings and more reductions we had there. I think the focus on mobile homes and single family are really places that we should be looking. But I would say 3 words on almost all of this, which is equity, equity, equity. 60%, I believe, of Northwest Natural's customers are low to moderate income people. So foisting any burdens on them is, we should think long and hard. I'll need another round there.
And Councilor Zlinka, I just want to clarify, that wasn't just residential, that was residential and commercial for new gas forecasts.
Right.
Okay. Still in round 1, I've got, and I realize for work sessions, we usually don't use the formal counselor, so I'll try to switch. We have Jennifer, followed by Lucy.
Thank you, Claire. Thanks so much for this presentation. I really appreciate it. I have 2 young ones in my family who are old enough to understand the crisis that's upon us with our climate, but also young enough that they feel like they don't have a lot of power to do something. And having good data like this, I think, is very comforting to know that it's out there, that people are looking at it, that we're taking it seriously, and that there is hope. That's what this data feels like to me. It's hope. It's that we have paths forward. There are things we can do. We don't have to just resign ourselves to just throwing up our hands and there's nothing we can do. So this is fantastic. I wanted to make sure I understood the cost because I got a little confused when Randy was talking. So the way I read this, he was saying 600,000, but the way I'm reading this is that the most expensive, just turn a million, is somewhere around 4 to 5. Am I not reading that right on slide 22? That's the most expensive option. And and then if you minus how much it would cost because of that 15-year cycle anyway, it takes 100 away? Or am I just totally misunderstanding the graphs?
So even in the most expensive scenario, the whole house retrofit community-wide at the natural replacement time, the increased cost for all of those houses is a total of what, 230 million beyond what would be spent anyway.
Okay, 230 million. Okay.
And I just want to say that adds weatherization and
Right.
panel upgrades. That the weatherization helps you with all kinds of things, both heating and cooling, because our peak is slowly shifting from winter to summer.
Mhm.
And also that that's the highest scenario that we see with the ducted ones. It could be lower with ductless, but again, the data, we have to work with the data that's already produced.
Right, right. Okay, so some of that 230 million includes stuff that we'd want to do no matter what we were doing, weatherization and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of slightly inflated from what just the cost of switching the units.
If it was just straight switching the units with the panel and no weatherization, then you're much more, even in the highest scenario, you're like at 130 million.
Okay. Okay. I just
The weatherization is just, I mean, it adds additional cost, but it shaves peaks.
Yeah.
And it shaves costs all the way into the future until that building is down hot or cold, and it makes it safer in cold events and heat events.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was reading the graph correctly. I really appreciate that. And then I'm going to hold off comments until we get to the motions otherwise. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll be brief. I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. First of all, I really appreciate the recommendation around we sort of need a centralized management of this whole process because it's so complicated. And I just wanted to comment on the chart in which you listed all of the summary of all of the organizations that are involved with this, that eWeb does all of these things except one, and that is home repairs. And so as we think about how we provide that kind of central management, I think that close coordination with eWeb is going to be pretty important, pretty critical. And recognizing that with all of those different programs, it's not just whether we as a city can track what's going on, it's the individual homeowner figuring out what resources they have, how do they turn to do that work. I mean, it can be a little, I find it even as a homeowner, a little bit baffling how much research I have to do to figure out the next step. The other piece that I wanted to comment on is I am very grateful for the recommendation around focusing on single family homes and particularly lower income single family homes and mobile homes, and wanting to just make the comment that the maps that you provided about where those lower income housing exists in our community aligns also with our discussion about a public health overlay zone. And combined with the comment about the Ithaca trying to do a broad scope of a lot of houses at once in order to reduce the per house cost of whatever retrofit or weatherization, that these two sort of planning and health and climate, all three of these things can sort of align in the thinking that council is undertaking around Bethel in particular, and the quality of the housing and their resiliency. And so just wanting to be grateful for that and my support that as we move forward, that council really thinks about those priorities. And then just one other quick thing, which is on the revenue stream, the federal government has made those CDBG block grants available for the kinds of planning and central management that we need, and that I hope that we will think about pursuing, if that seems viable, pursuing that funding to help us take some of those first steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
May I respond to the mayor?
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to say about those single family homes, outside of the trailers, there are also homes that are just older that have been passed down multiple generations where the repairs, it can't be afforded. So in that big pile, that big bar, are some folks that need to be served, even though they're in a single family detached home. And again, in Portland, we find that half of their #1 air pollution problem is coming from a tiny portion of folks that are maybe the third generation in a house that can't afford the upkeep. So they're burning wood and they're going cheapest energy source. So I want to say that that's another place we have to pay attention to. And then we got to get the rest of us folks, myself included, in a program where if you're in a single family detached dwelling and you have more means, you can still do this efficiently, right? We're not the first to be served, but we're the biggest pile. So from an emission standpoint, we must go and serve middle and higher income single family households. It's kind of a weird thing to think about, but it's really where we have to go to.
All right, so I've got 6 counselors for second rounds. It is almost 1:30. So I'm going to ask for a motion to extend.
So move.
How long?
Extend for 20 minutes.
Okay.
30.
Is there a second?
Second.
I can only do 15.
I'll accept that if it's a friendly amendment. Yeah,
Sure.
Sure, 15.
All in favor of extending 15 minutes past 1:30? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed?
Sorry, I'm in favor.
Okay. So that passes. We're going to extend till 1:45. I am going to reduce the time of our rounds to 2 minutes. So that gives Josh more time to respond. I have Councilor Keating.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to park my second inquiry just to simply underscore the point that you made that Northwest Natural is actively suing the state of Oregon to not meet the state's critical CRO goals. Josh, Matt?
I'm happy to speak just real quick. They joined in a lawsuit that is challenging the authority of the administrative rules that were adopted implementing the executive order. So yes, all of the administrative rules that were adopted to implement the governor's executive order, they are part of the lawsuit amongst others that have filed challenging the authority of those rules to be adopted.
Understood. I'm scouring something that I wish could be shared right now with my colleagues and the public at large. And so I'll request that the piece be submitted into the public record, as I have the good fortune of looking at the activity book / coloring book for children reportedly sent to 4J, featuring characters Nat and Gus, a cartoon cat and a cartoon mouse. Think Itchy and Scratchy, pro natural gas. Learning connection. Natural gas is one source of energy. The sun warms the surface and is also a source of energy. There are smiling dinosaurs. Which is cleanest, a diesel bus or a bus? Learning connection. Natural gas burns more cleanly than diesel fuel. It goes on and on and on. Nat or Gus, one of the two, he's a mouse, or they're a mouse, shows a picture of a person with a pizza pie, 2 persons at a desk, 3 enjoying dinner, 4 in some factory cooking something, and there's a learning connection. Quote, natural gas can be used in offices for heating and cooling restaurants, for cooking and baking, for factories and manufacturing goods. It goes on and on with multiple learning connections. And it frankly, here's the best one. It says, something smells. And the Heathcliff looking cat, I don't know if it's Nat or Gus, is holding up a confused mouse. Again, I don't know which is which. And I have an answer to that piece. Something does smell. It's an inexcusable propaganda PR campaign that reeks of tactics that are decades old, big tobacco has embraced. I wanted to just say that for the record and input that activity book into the record if I could.
Mike.
Thank you, Claire. I want to say a couple of things in general terms. One, I agree with Alan that I wish our more pronounced focus was on transportation as well. I think that's where the real advancements can be made here. I'm for making smart decisions about this that are effective, much like the data we've just been shown. I appreciate very much Josh's presentation because I think it's high time for us to look at smart hybrid options to some of these discussions rather than the black and white presentations that are offered us as potential ways forward. I think the goals are important. I think doing it intelligently is important and responsibly. My questions to Josh are those trying to understand better the assumptions and limits of the presentation of information as well to understand potential consequences that may exist outside of what he presented. The opinions and information I mentioned in round one are not my opinions, but those, as I mentioned, published July 15th by the former administrator for BPA by the name of Stephen Wright in an article on newsdata.com that is titled Resource Adequacy in the Northwest. Seems like the challenge keeps getting bigger. So I highly recommend people read that. It contains a lot of good information, much like our presentation today. And my last question for Josh would be on the other end of the spectrum, which is we can't know and we often don't get notice of a potential large addition to demand. For example, if we were to suddenly have a server farm company buy Hynix, or we had a Bitcoin mining company set up, can you talk about the additional effect of that level of demand?
Councillor Clark, I think eWeb's put together a memo to support council questions for the July 25th work session. They talk about reliability and additional generation. And I think that would be, it'll come out tomorrow, will be a good source for you to look at to answer.
I would like that too, but it seems like we may be asked to make decisions right now. And I'm just trying to get better information beforehand. So I suspect I wouldn't want to make decisions until having all the information. Thank you.
Randy.
Thank you, Council President. Well, we were talking about the brownouts and the blackouts that happened in California. I was remembering that slightly differently. So I just checked and did a quick Google search, and it was article after article about a supply demand inequity. And also there was a memo from eWeb CEO Frank Lawson to the eWeb board on September 30th, 2021 that supported that as well. So it's really both. I mean, there were times that they shut down because of the increased loads on transmission lines through sensitive areas, but there was also, especially with the heat dome, demand exceeded capacity supply, especially for some of the elderly residents down there, which created problems. So it really is both. My question to you, Josh, is, are you aware of any work on behalf of the federal government to try to beef up our utilities and our interoperability? And the reason I'm asking, I sit on another board with a member from a rural utility board, and she was saying the other night at a meeting that they're ordering transformers and there's a 2-year backlog and that none of the equipment seems to be interchangeable. Is there anything being worked on the national front?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry, that sounds like an eWeb question.
Sounds okay. I'll raise that for them. But I mean, if that's not happening, that's something I think we should talk to our federal congressional delegation and see if we can encourage work in that area, because that resiliency is incredibly important, especially as we're pushing more load on our electrical system. We need to make sure it's up for the challenge and that we have a very robust system if we're traditionally or increasingly moving towards one energy type.
And if I may address one thing there, both with the Texas cold and then the Pacific Northwest heat dome, right? We're starting to see different ranges of design specifications of what traditional climate is like. So we got caught off guard by a heat dome that Texas could handle easily, right? Texas got caught off guard by a cold snap that we could handle easily. Their design specs on their gas valves were for a higher temperature regime, and they actually froze. And that is a major part of why they did not have enough power. But also they don't have the insulation specs that we do because they're a warmer climate. So we're seeing with climate change that all these systems and design specifications and building codes are going to have to be adjusted in all directions.
Thank you. And I purposely did not include Texas in that because I understood they were in a different situation, but I think California is more speaking to my concerns. So I hope we're looking at the resiliency aspect as well as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I put myself in the queue for a second round. I got a statement here. So while I'm not as skilled at dramatic presentations as my colleague here on the left, I believe the importance of doing our part to lead on this crisis deserves some trauma. So yesterday brought this quote related to the global efforts to combat climate change. We have a choice of collective action or collective suicide, and that it is in our hands. And that's the UN General Secretary, Antonin Guterres. And I'm really feeling the fierce urgency of 1,900 people killed in the current heat wave in Spain and Portugal this week, along with airports, runways melting in Heathrow, which follow along with our own deaths here in the Pacific Northwest of hundreds of people from heat and fires that destroyed hundreds of homes. So I think the time has passed for us to say, let's just do what we get the biggest bang for our buck, which was a position I supported 3 years ago. And now I think we need to be moving on all things with the knowledge that we as a city can only do so much just as a practical matter. But we cannot wait for the feds or the state to do this. We have an opportunity to lead, and I think it is imperative that we must. We can't wait to have anyone come to our rescue. And it was in this context that I broadcast to the council 2 motions that I plan to put on the table today to move us forward to action. And I did this to plant a flag for our work session today, to try to move this council to take stronger action on electrification. And our city manager, along with our public works director and our council vice president, met today. And I agreed to put forward modified motion versions of those motions that provide the city manager with the authority she needs to do her job without dictating those details. I'm going to postpone making those motions until Monday in the interest of the fact that I'm out of time and we're going to run out of time with this work session, but I wanted to get that statement on the record. Thank you. Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, thank you for that, Claire. I totally agree. Climate change is the crisis of our time, and we need to act. We're way behind in stopping the awful impacts of climate change. We're going to blow by 2 degrees centigrade, and which was the alarm bells that the scientists said that we needed to avoid. And we're poised to do that, go well beyond that, even if we start doing the stuff that we need to do. So acting is very, very important. And it's going to take a concerted amount of effort. I mean, we're talking about WPA, Work Project Administration, kind of level efforts to actually do all of this. And that's why I think funding is a big issue. It's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. And at the forefront of all that conversation, we need to put equity, because there's so many people that can't afford this transition. But we need to move fast. And just the amount of funding that is available is pretty dismal. I totally agree that we also need a project manager on this, and have a person to be point on this work. That's why I suggested a work session on a dedicated funding source for climate change issues and housing and homeless issues. I still think that didn't go anywhere, and I hope we can revisit that, because this points to why we need that. I think the timing recommendation is a good one. As the author of the Climate Recovery Ordinance, I agree. The state and the nation are at 2050. Alignment has the power of synergies. But really, I think we should think about that. slide 6 and 7 really point to an interesting fact, which is that 90% of the natural gas emissions come from space and water heating. And I think if that should be our focus. That's where we need to pinpoint our efforts, because that's where we're going to be able to make the biggest impact in the shortest period of time. Thank you.
Jennifer, did you want a second round? No. Okay. All right. City Manager, did you want to offer any comments?
No, I think I appreciate where this conversation has gone, and you'll have more information in your packet tomorrow that answers a lot of these questions. So I think as we have that work session on Monday, this will be a nice way to kind of come back and close both of those up for now, at least with your motions.
Yeah, thank you. And the city manager did share with council draft versions of those revised motions for your consideration. I appreciate the city manager and public works director meeting with me this morning, and really appreciate the work of the good company and your presentation today. I agree with, I think it was Alan who said, you know, wonderful companies, glad you're local, glad you're part of our team. And thank you, Matt, also for all of your hard work. And with that, we are adjourned.